I'm Genine Howard, CEO and founder of Profile Magazine. And today I'm really delighted to share with you someone who I know very well, but she is someone that you're going to love hearing from when we talk about how business owners can get focus and clarity and self-awareness so that they can really go out and do what they need to do in the world. So welcome today, Rebecca Ramsay. Rebecca, it's a pleasure to have you here. And today I really want to dive into who you are, why you do what you do in the world. And so therefore people can actually go and find their why in the world as well. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's exciting to be here.
So Rebecca, I want to start with you leading by example. Tell me, what is your why about why you work with business owners?
Why I work with business owners is because I've been a business owner quite a long time myself. And I also know that business owners have got, it has to work. There's something on the line for business owners. And I like to work with people who are prepared to shift and want results. And that tends to be the case. I also, really understand the predicament that they're in relation to family and to community and to, finances and future and the impact that they can have in their communities. So, yeah, for all of those reasons and more, I love it.
And so tell me, how long have you been in the business? And let's go back to the start, like what made you start that business?
Okay, so I've been coaching for just over 12 years, and I started because I was searching for what was next. I'd been, the business before this was actually writing about food, and before that I had a cafe, and I've done cooking presentations and all sorts in that kind of zone. But prior to that I was in corporate and all sorts, and I was just really trying to find, okay, now I've got all this experience, I've learned all this stuff. I'd had some really negative experiences in the workplace with what could probably only be described as a corporate psychopath. So I think I was a bit burnt and really looking to what would happen next. And I started studying human behaviour and understanding how people tick, and discovered the power of coaching. I hadn't heard of it before, but when I came across that, I was like, oh my gosh, this can make a difference. But in the first instance, it made a difference to me. And then, just locally, I started talking to business owners because I understood what that was like. And and just started very, small and local and worked from there. So that's how it all came about 12 years ago.
And isn't it interesting? So 12 years ago, the main person we would have all known about coaching was probably someone like Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was my first foray. I'm like, who is this guy? And I used to go walking, listening to him, and I'd just go around the block again because I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating stuff. So, once I started, studying that side of things, I actually went to Melbourne to study, and then followed that up with neuro-linguistic programming and training qualifications and things like that. It just all started to unravel, and like a lot of business owners, when we discover what we want to do everything for everybody, and that was one of those early mistakes or growth areas, to figure out that it's not about trying to be everything to everybody. And I think too, because for me it was very much about discovering myself and what I was capable of, and I had young girls at the time, and in terms of my why, they're definitely a drive. I mean, having children for me was definitely a catalyst, and I think maybe because it was girls, I mean, probably be the same if it was boys, was, God, I've got to show up. Like I want to show up and show them the best version of me more than probably anyone else in the world. I want them to see what, I'm capable of, so that they want to do that for themselves. I think that was, one of the early drivers. And then since then, I've discovered, there's so many ways that we contribute. And so, community is really big for me, and not just our local community. I mean, I consider myself a global citizen, and I'm very passionate about that, and it's different for everybody. But for me, whether I'm helping here or, in Uganda or wherever it is, I like, from a financial point of view, I want to earn money so that I can go and do those things that make me, tap into that other part of myself.
And I guess that's really answering my question, because at the core of it, if you can build a business that gives you and your family financial freedom, it means that you can have more contribution in the world. And I think one of the, what we've discussed previously, one of your core functions is to actually help others get that for themselves, they can go and contribute to the world in a bigger way.
Yeah, it's so true. And I don't think people see that for themselves. And it certainly doesn't have to be the same way for everyone. And the world might just be, I really believe in the concept of the pebble in the pond, So when I work with a business owner or any leader that I work with who has a shift that's positive about themselves and then sees the light of, okay, I can do that. I do that better. Or now I see what's happening. Everybody else around them benefits from that, and that's the magic of what I think we do. So I feel really, it's a very privileged role to play.
So there's two different aspects that I want to make sure we cover off in this interview. So I want to go back one step before we sort of go into what the transformation is for your clients. I want to talk about, tell us about some of the interesting projects that you've actually been a part of, say in as a global citizen.
Okay, cool. So I've always travelled. I was lucky to be introduced to travel early, and then probably the first time I kind of followed that part of myself was, now I can't remember how long ago, 14 years ago, so after I started coaching. Anyway, I went to Nepal, which had a real calling for me, and worked with an orphanage there, and as part of a volunteer organisation, and I was lucky to have found a really great one. I spent a month living with the kids and just having my mind blown by, what else is going on in our community and how people are living and what people are dealing with and how to contribute. And it was very humbling. And what was interesting about that particular experience was, of the 20 or so people on that kind of in the group that I was with, that we did work in this community, I was the only parent. And here we were, and here I was actually living in the orphanage with the kids, and then others were billeted out into the community and stuff. And so I could talk about that for more than half an hour, but so that was an early one. And then I've for some years now been involved with the Budrum Foundation, which is a local organisation here. I started out as a secretary. I've been on their grants committee for many years, and then now I'm on the board of directors and I chair their grants committee. So that's given me massive insight into the local needs of our community, because we provide grants to community organisations in everything from health, sport, youth, elderly, just so much need that is happening, and it's been taken care of by people who contribute. And this is what I think often doesn't happen until maybe we're retired, that we realise that we can be giving back. So I have a bit of a passion about introducing people under 50 to the concept that they can be contributing to community. I won't get on that bandwagon today. And then more recently, as part of a business community, we've been supporting an amazing charity in Uganda. And last year I took my now 17-year-old daughter, who you know well, to Uganda, and we worked with that charity for a week, and then we got to do some travel, which was really cool. And just being able, that sense of procession of, enabling others and inspiring and motivating the people around us to see what they're capable of doing and contributing as well. But those experiences are it's unexplainable, because when you're there, I felt, did I deserve to be there almost? And why you think you're there and why you end up turning up is two different things. So, anyway.
And just to wrap up that story too, I love that at the start of our interview, I asked you about your why, and you were very much referring to your two daughters and being a role model to them. And that's literally playing out now, isn't it, with your daughter in particular, Paris, who is the now 17-year-old, who has that real sense of community and giving back herself, doesn't she?
She really does. I'm off of goosebumps, and she's a pretty fabulous human being in herself, and I can't wait to see what she does in the world. But she's been asked to join a committee on the Budrum Foundation now, so she's got her own brand of contribution and giving, and I'm just here to show her options, I suppose, as we are as parents.
So, well, you're doing a great job as a role model. The topic I want to go back to is this topic of coaching, right? So coaching's this funny thing, like as we were saying, we were sort of first introduced to coaching by people like Tony Robbins, and it was, you know, it's all over the top, and we thought it was all very American. And, you know, I know for me, when I first sort of became a coach, I couldn't even say the word coach. It was had such a reputation, especially here in Australia. But why do you think it's important for, whether it's a business owner, whether it's families, individuals, why do you think that coaching is so important, and especially your style of coaching?
Look, I think it's crazy to think that we should know how to do and cope with everything. You know, we all have our different strengths, and if I want to, you know, do the best with my health, I need to go and talk to someone who can guide me in my health. If I want to become able to run, you know, 10, 20 Ks, I'm going to go and ask a coach. If I want to, you know, work out how to, you know, manage my finances better, I'm going to go and talk to a coach, an accountant, right? Or, you know, so coaching, and there are so many variations like we said before. It's about just tapping into the guidance to get the best result. So I think it's really important, because it's naive to think that you can get the best result without getting some guidance around someone who specializes in that area. Like, I have coaches for the areas that aren't my thing, you know. I don't try and, you know, take my own photos, for example. They just don't work. Or, I go to a gym and get instructed how to use that reformer Pilates machine, because I just really do it backwards. So I think there's a sensibility to it, and I think that's it's like, you know, going to counseling or relationships or any of those things. We think we're supposed to know. It's like parenting. Like, I spoke to a young parent recently, and I said, oh, there's a really great book around X, or, oh, you know, there's that triple P parenting program or whatever. And she was horrified. Well, I shouldn't have to ask anyone. I'm like, are you kidding me? I read that many books and watched that many videos and series of the Super Nanny to pick up every little piece I can, you know. And when we've got real challenges, we go to the person who knows the most about that. So I just think we can't know and be everything. So getting support to get the best out of ourselves is a fantastic idea.
I love it. And I love relating it back to whether it's parenting, fitness, every aspect. Really, they're all coaches.
Of course, absolutely, 100%. And in my role, I consider myself, I should do myself out of a job. Like, my plan is to help my clients become coaches in whatever their thing is, whether it's for their team members and that's where it's been a big shift for me in my business, where I used to work with a lot of team members, and now I rarely do that, and I only do that if I'm working with leadership teams. But I want, my clients need to be the coach. You can't have someone else coach your team for you. It's like, you can't outsource your parenting. You can't outsource your leadership, and that becomes a real focus for me.
So let's talk about your style of coaching, because, you know, there's coaches, everyone's got a different style. Can you explain a little bit about your process, about how you work with people?
Yeah, absolutely. So my process is very much focused on self-awareness. So I find that in my experience, we have a perception of ourselves, but it's not necessarily realistic. So I spend some really quality time on identifying who this person is, helping them see themselves from outside. And I use some really cool tools and profiling to identify very quickly what our drivers are, what motivates us, what our decision-making patterns are, what are our defaults, which ones are working for us, which ones aren't working for us. So it's actually very scientific, a lot of that happens in the background, so that we've got actual tools to work with. So once we've established that, then it's about helping people understand, where are their blind spots, like what have they not noticed? So what do they not realize is happening, and the effect that's having. So, and I can just do that quickly. I guess that's part of what makes my style of coaching different, is that I have a capacity, and probably through the study and stuff I've done, to listen, look, and then define and refine and go, okay, so what's happening here is X. It's a, there's a saying, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So there's kind of a diagnostic period, which could be anything from half an hour to to a month, but it's a diagnostic period to then go, okay, cool, what are we trying to get to, and this is how we can get there. So it's quite it's exciting, like it's a ride. And so the clients that I tend to work with are looking for, they want action now, and oftentimes they'll come to me because they've left it late and now they're stressed and they're frustrated, and they're going, God, but I'm doing this for, I started this business so I could have freedom, or so I could help people, or I could do this, but all I find myself doing is something else. So it's helping get people back on their track and in their flow, and getting everyone else in their flow as well, because I find that a lot of my clients tend to not be great at delegating and not be great at sharing, and that way they end up with this frustration of now only people want to only talk to me. So that's something that I like to help with regularly as well.
And I love too that, which by the way sounds kind of like me sometimes, and I love too that really what you're doing is helping them get focus and clarity on where their genius zone is, so that they can actually go and have an impact. Would I be right?
100%, very much. And even that genius zone concept is definitely a part of what we do, because that's where we can have the most impact, and anything outside of that is really just slowing us down and creating an inability for us to help the people that we really want to help.
And I guess that goes back to what you were saying, your why. This is, if business owners can find out their why and their purpose, that can become the driver for them, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it is so joyful. I have one of my wonderful clients at the moment, and he will send me regular, like, little photograph updates of meetings he just had, or successes he just had on a phone call or whatever, or something he drew in a meeting, and you just see that people clawing back there, like remembering who they are and what they're great at, because I think it gets buried in the busyness of doing business, so yeah, unburying people, maybe I should say it like that.
Because it's really that process of, like, we get bogged down, burying, isn't it? Bogged down with all of the things that don't really have an impact at the end of the day. So tell me, like, how do you help people unbog or unbury themselves? What's that process?
That process is a lot of reflection. So you'll have experienced this when you start reflecting back to people. Okay, so you find yourself doing this or saying this, or so you're feeling this way about something, and they starting to see themselves fresh. And that's the beginning, I think, of that process, because once we can see something, when we have an awareness of something, we can start working through it. But when we've got no awareness of it, we can't deal with it. So creating super high and deep levels of awareness. And to that point, I find that we don't have many opportunities in life. Like, I know there's many of my coaching clients who have not had the conversations that we have with anybody else. There's not that many opportunities in our lives to be truly seen and heard. And that alone can be game changing, to be seen. It's not always easy. And that's where the integrity of a coaching relationship is massive, because this is incredibly vulnerable. But done the right way, it's life changing.
Yeah. And especially for leaders. For business owners and those people who are leading teams all of the time, or leading movement, often they're the last ones to actually get support for them, isn't it?
Oh, they are. And because we spend a lot of our time, and it's interesting on both fronts, as we become leaders within organisations, the help drops away and the support drops away, because we become that to everybody else. And I've listened to some really interesting stuff from executives, like high-level executives, presidents of companies, who have coaches that have been with them for long periods of time, because they recognise, I need someone who's got my back, because I've got to have everyone else's back.
Yeah.
And in business, as a business owner, that happens, as well as the fact that we're constantly supposed to put on this, oh yeah, everything's going great face, and yes, no, we're doing well, because we want to give that perception so people want to work with us. But then we forget what we've missed. And so for someone to actually see their real truth, and that can be really hard for business owners to do sometimes, to show me I want to see the actual figures, not because I want to be your accountant, but because I want the truth about where we're starting from, so we can see whether we're doing any better. And it's terrifying, but then a massive relief for business owners to go, oh, someone other than me actually knows where I'm at, whether it's financially, emotionally, you know, my stress levels, all of that.
And I think that's where it could potentially be quite a resistance to go and get support, say in coaching, because at the back we go, I know I'm going to have to show up. I know I'm going to have to get self-aware about
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that, yeah, that's a challenge for us as coaches, is educating people that it's a safe space to be. And also, you know, we have an unregulated market. And so that's a challenge for us as a marketplace.
And what do you say about that too? Because, you know, is an interesting story. You know, I am around a lot of coaches, very, you know, long-term coaches and that kind of thing in sort of one area I mastermind with. And then I see a lot of fresh coaches coming into the market, and, you know, people calling themselves business coaches when they've never had a business before and all of that kind of thing. So what do you say to people who have that skepticism about coaching and, you know, taking that step and investing? What can they do, I guess, to find the right coach for them?
Oh, that's such a good question. What they can do is firstly identify what kind of results are they looking for. If you're talking to a coach, ask them what coaching they get. That'd be my first question, because if you've got a coach who doesn't get coached, that doesn't make any sense to me. Just like if I went to an accountant who didn't have an accountant, or a doctor that didn't go to the doctor. Anyway, so that would be our first step, would be, do they get coached? But then there has to be, as I was saying earlier, that the relationship's very important. And while you don't become that person's best friend, it needs to be someone that you respect. So, you know, everyone does that differently, but it needs to feel right. And if you're talking to a coach and they are talking at you, as opposed to asking questions and then shutting up, then, you know, that could be an indicator as well. So notice the difference between talking and listening, and their genuine curiosity. Are they genuinely interested in you? Because if they only want to tell you stuff, it could be a sign.
Yeah, beautiful advice. I love that so much. And tell us just quickly, you've got a beautiful special offer, by the way, for our viewers and listeners, which we'll go into. But this method of swift coaching, because one of the things I keep hearing from you, Rebecca, is, you know, it can be fast. Transformation can be quite quick. So can you tell us a little bit about the swift coaching and then the offer that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So swift coaching, yeah, well, you know, as it says, it's quick. Oh, I've lost my light. And I guess it's also an opportunity, and to your last question, how do you know if the coach is right for you? Well, hopefully you get to try them out. And so you're either going to try them out at a networking event or on a phone call where hopefully they're engaging and interested in you. But this is an opportunity to have it's a 30-minute coaching session on something very specific. And, you know, that's how we get results. So the way that it works, though, is that you do a bit of preparation ahead of time. So that really shortcuts the process, but it also gets you ready to be coached. So there's something called coachability, as you would know, and some people are coachable and some people aren't coachable, and that could just be a time frame thing. So I get people to do some preparation around that, and swift, of course, it's an analogy. So starting with the end in mind, why is this an outcome important? I currently tell myself what about this challenge or goal. For this to be achieved, what am I not prepared to do? And what's the timeline I want to see a result in? So if you can answer fully all of those questions, we're going to be well on our way, and it's something that we can get a result, you know, really quite quickly. And I get an adjustment, you know, it's a real opportunity to get an adjustment and to try me out. I talk fast, sometimes not so fast, but it's really exciting process, and it gives people something really tangible that they can work with, because I'm all about, if you can't walk away with something you can actually do now, then that's frustrating for a lot of people.
I love it. And so how can people find out more about you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. My business name's Clearlight Capital. So, and the website, of course, clearlightcapital.com.au. And you can email me, and there'll be a link somewhere, I'm sure, that they can access that swift kind of assessment to work out whether that's going to be something that they love to do. Yeah, so lots of ways. Just type Rebecca Ramsay coach and you'll find me.
Beautiful. And so any last words that you'd love to share about either what you do or what coaching can have as an impact?
I think of coaching as something that helps you get more for yourself and out of yourself. So from a coaching perspective, do that. But just, in general, I think we just all need to be a bit kinder to ourselves and just drop the pressure valve a little bit. And just, think a little bit about, what does success actually mean today? Does it have to be getting 1,000 things done, or could it just be if I tick those 3 boxes? That's a big one for me.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Rebecca. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Genine.
All right, talk to you soon.